Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Pentagon says it killed 5 people in a pair of airstrikes on boats in the Eastern Pacific, claiming they were carrying drugs, though again providing no evidence. The latest attacks bring the Pentagon's claimed death toll in similar attacks to over 100 since September. This comes as leaders of the United Nations and Latin American nations are calling on the Trump administration to halt the extrajudicial killings and to end its threats of a regime change war against Venezuela. This is the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, speaking Wednesday.
Reiteramos la posición de México.
We reiterate Mexico's position according to our Constitution of non-intervention. No foreign interference, self-determination of peoples, and peaceful resolution of controversies. We call for dialogue and peace to resolve any international controversy, not intervention.
The suspect in the Brown University mass shooting was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound Thursday night in a Salem, New Hampshire storage unit he'd rented. The suspect was identified as Claudio Neves Valente, a 48-year-old Portuguese national who attended Brown University in 2000-2001. He was reportedly enrolled as a graduate student from the fall of 2000 to the next spring. Brown President Christina Paxson said in a statement, quote, during his time at Brown, Neves Valente was enrolled only in physics classes, and it's likely he would have taken courses and spent time in Barras and Holly, referring to the building where the shooting took place. Authorities said they believe Neves Valente is also responsible for the murder of the award-winning MIT physics professor Nuno Loureiro at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts, just 48 hours after the Brown shooting that killed 2 students and wounded 9 others. Neves Valente was reportedly a teaching assistant in the same university in Portugal Loureiro attended between 1995 and 2000. Investigators say tips from a Brown campus custodian helped to narrow down the days-long search for the suspect. Neves was reportedly spotted at Brown's Barras and Holly building in the days before the shooting, including at least twice by the custodian, who said he'd seen a person wearing a surgical mask and whose clothing matched the individual seen in surveillance footage released by police. In the wake of the killings, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the Trump administration is suspending its diversity visa lottery program. Neves Valente entered the country on a student visa in 2000 and was granted a green card through the visa program in 2017. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. In Gaza, Israeli airstrikes on a town east of Khan Yunis have killed 4 Palestinian civilians, including a woman, over the past 24 hours. This follows air and artillery strikes in the cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis, the latest in a series of near-daily ceasefire violations by Israel's military. Separately, a child in the Nuseirat refugee camp died after triggering unexploded Israeli ordnance. And Doctors Without Borders said Thursday a 29-day-old baby died of hypothermia at Nasser Hospital, the latest Palestinian to freeze to death as Israel prevents aid convoys from bringing tents and other portable shelters into Gaza. Nursing team supervisor Bilal Abu Saada said, quote, children are losing their lives because they lack the most basic items for survival. Babies are arriving to the hospital cold with near-death vital signs. Even our best efforts are not enough. They say the war has ended, but people are still having to fight for their lives, unquote. The Trump administration's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, is hosting talks in Miami today with senior officials from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey focused on the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement, which Gaza officials say Israel's violated more than 800 times since it took effect on October 10th. The meeting comes after the Middle East Eye reported the U.S., Israel, and UAE have discussed using profits from Gaza's undeveloped offshore natural gas supplies to help pay for the reconstruction of the territory. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's announced a new round of sanctions on staff members at the ICC. That's the International Criminal Court in The Hague, citing the court's ongoing probe into Israeli war crimes. In Britain, advocates are calling on the immediate release of 6 political prisoners awaiting trial for supporting the banned protest group Palestine Action. More than 800 doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals have warned the activists are at risk of dying as they have not received proper medical attention, some after over 40 days on hunger strike, protesting their treatment in prison and calling for their release on bail. This is the sister of Palestine Action prisoner, 28-year-old Kamran Ahmed.
He is on day 39 of his hunger strike. He's had 2 hospitalizations since the start of his hunger strike, having only come out of his hospitalization last week. Whilst they were able to stabilize his ketones, they are steeply on the rise again. But what is mostly concerning is that his heart is giving in and his pulse is slowing down. And at the moment, he's losing half a kg every day.
In the United States, House Democrats have released more photos from the estate of the convicted serial sex offender Jeffrey Epstein ahead of today's congressionally mandated deadline for the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. The uncaptioned photos show Epstein with film director Woody Allen, Trump's former advisor Steve Bannon, New York Times opinion columnist David Brooks, MIT linguist Noam Chomsky, and billionaire tech mogul Bill Gates. Some of the photographs show what appear to be lines from Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, a novel about a pedophile written on parts of a woman's body. Ahead of today's deadline, CNN reported the Justice Department was racing to redact thousands of pages in the Epstein files. Here in New York, Gothamist is reporting federal immigration officers were able to enter private areas of city shelters or obtain resident information without presenting judicial warrants at least 5 times earlier this year. That's despite sanctuary city laws barring city staffers from allowing immigration officers to enter private areas of city property. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch is calling on Congress to investigate the brutality of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement activities, writing, quote, allowing masked, unidentified agents to roam communities and apprehend people without identifying themselves erodes trust in the rule of law and creates a dangerous vacuum where abuses can flourish, exacerbating the unnecessary violence and brutality of the arrests, unquote. In Wisconsin, a jury Thursday convicted Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan of obstructing federal agents from arresting an undocumented immigrant, while jurors acquitted her of a misdemeanor charge. She was accused of helping an undocumented immigrant leave her courtroom in April to avoid arrest by agents waiting in the hallway. The Trump administration's announced new policies aimed at denying gender-affirming care to transgender youth. The proposed new rules would cut off all Medicare and Medicaid funding to hospitals offering such care to anyone under 18. Medicare and Medicaid cover nearly half of all hospital spending. After headlines, we'll speak with Chase Strangio of the ACLU and a pediatrician and adolescent medicine specialist who works with transgender youth in New York City. President Trump signed an executive order Thursday fast-tracking the reclassification of cannabis as a Schedule III substance, which would pave the way for the Food and Drug Administration to study its medicinal uses. It's currently listed under the U.S. Controlled Substances Act as a Schedule I substance, a list that includes heroin, ecstasy, and peyote. During Thursday's signing ceremony, Trump struggled to stay awake. It's the latest in a series of recent public events where Trump appeared to fall asleep in front of the cameras. That's fueled speculation about his health. California Congressmember Sidney Kamlager-Dove wrote on social media, quote, "The Alzheimer's drug Leqembi is administered through an infusion, for example, through the hand, can cause swelling, bleeding, or fluid leakage in the brain, requiring regular MRIs, can cause tiredness. Curious," she wrote. President Trump's redecorated a stretch of the White House he's calling the Presidential Walk of Fame, with plaques offering hyper-partisan descriptions of past presidents and his own time as president. The portrait gallery along the West Wing colonnade now features Trump's words cast in bronze in the style of a social media post. One plaque under President Biden, which is actually a picture of an auto pen, reads, quote, "Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history," unquote, and claims the 2020 election was the most corrupt in U.S. history. Another reads, quote, under Barack Obama's portrait, "Barack Hussein Obama was the first Black president, a community organizer, one-term senator from Illinois, and one of the most divisive political figures in American history," unquote. The plaques also tout Trump's achievements, claiming he tackled inflation and ended 8 wars, while President Ronald Reagan's plaque reads, quote, "He was a fan of President Donald J. Trump before Trump's historic run for the White House. Likewise, President Trump was a fan of his, exclamation point," unquote. This week, President Trump said the cost of his planned ballroom project at the White House could reach $400 million. That's double his earlier claim that it would cost $200 million. On Monday, his administration argued the ballroom's construction is a matter of national security. The Board of Trustees at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts voted Thursday to rename the facility. Its new name will be the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts. The board members were handpicked by President Trump in February after he named himself chair. Democratic lawmakers called the move illegal, saying in a statement that any name change would require an act of Congress. The media company run by Donald Trump Jr. and former Republican Congressmember Devin Nunes has announced a $6 billion merger with a firm that hopes to build the world's first viable nuclear fusion power plant. The merger between the Trump Media and Technology Group and TAE Technologies comes after President Trump signed executive order seeking to bar states from regulating artificial intelligence and the energy-intensive data centers needed to power AI. This comes as Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders is continuing to speak out against AI data centers amidst a construction boom that's led to protests over skyrocketing electricity costs and strains on communities' water supplies.
I will be pushing for a moratorium on the construction of data centers that are powering this unregulated sprint to develop and deploy AI. This moratorium will give democracy a chance to catch up with the transformative changes that we are witnessing and make sure that the benefits of these technologies work for all of us, not just the wealthiest people on Earth.
And protests have erupted across Bangladesh after the death of prominent youth activist Sharif Osman Hadi, a leader in last year's uprising that ousted the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Police and paramilitary forces have been deployed to the capital Dhaka and other cities as hundreds of people took to the streets overnight Thursday. Last week, Hadi, an outspoken critic of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, was shot in the head by masked assailants as he launched his campaign for the first elections since the 2024 ouster of Sheikh Hasina, who remains in self-imposed exile in India, was sentenced to death for crimes against humanity last month. Sharif Osman Hadi died of his wounds Thursday at a hospital in Singapore. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.